Hey, Abraham, how are you?
I am great. Glad to be here.
You talked about being off certain point of your life. And do you want to talk about like what was it, the feeling of feeling off, and what was the turning point where you realized you needed help? And what did you do to do that? Like, what were the processes that you followed?
For me, when it comes to the turning point, there were a couple of things at play. One was that I grew up in a Jamaican household. So I had two Jamaican immigrant parents growing up,
Uh-huh.
and I also grew up in a Christian family. And so there was this dynamic or this unspoken rule of we don't talk about our feelings, our emotions. And so I kind of grew up in that environment where there wasn't necessarily a safe space to talk about anything related to mental health.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what mental health was when I was younger.
Yeah.
So fast forward to leaving home and being the first in my family to go off to college in 2014, I started to experience stress because I was a full-time student. I had a full-time job. I was trying to have the full experience of what it's like as a college student. And it became overwhelming
Yeah.
and it was stressful. And I just continued to push as if nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
So that wasn't helpful. And it led to me having challenges mentally and emotionally to the point where I went from being a motivated student to not being able to get out of bed. So I knew that something was off because normally I would be able to motivate myself to do things. I would be able to get up and exercise and feel better.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the motivational music wasn't working. The videos weren't working. The friends weren't helping. And I felt stuck. So
Yes.
that at that point, I knew I needed some sort of help, whatever help looked like at that point.
Yeah. And was there like a moment where you were like juggling in your mind that do I need help and I'm still okay, because there were moments where you were not feeling so bad but you were feeling bad enough? Was there any friend or anybody, like you said, your family did not believe in like anything related to mental health and you grew up with
Mhm.
that thing, but was there any friend who kept like pestering you, like I do want
Yeah,
to hear
you
about
you
that.
said the right word. She was pestering me, and and I shared a little bit about this in my presentation that you attended.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a friend, and at the time, I did not like this friend because she kept bothering me, is what I called it, bothering me. But now I'm so grateful for that friend because if it wasn't for that friend checking on me and continuing to check on me, I don't know where I would be today. And honestly, I don't know if I would be here today
Yes.
because it got really dark for me and I got to a really low point in my life. But I had this friend, so I'll give you the quick story.
Yeah.
I had this friend and we met during undergrad, my first year. And we quickly developed a fast relationship because we enjoyed doing the same things. And we both came from immigrant families. And so there was a connection there. So we became friends pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And again, I went from being this motivated, enthusiastic go-getter to isolating myself. And this friend realized that I started withdrawing myself, and she knew something was off because that's not the way I normally operate.
Yeah.
So she saw the signs and she saw that something was off. And so she would check in on me, but I would ignore her phone calls, ignore her text messages because
It's
I didn't
hard.
feel like myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want her to see me like this. Like
Yeah.
I'm known to be the strong friend, the one who's supportive, but now I can't even support myself. So
She wants to
I
show the
felt,
vulnerable side, right, of anybody.
yeah, I felt very shameful and embarrassed with what I was experiencing. But like you mentioned, this friend kept pestering me, and I remember one weekend I was at home, and it was a beautiful day outside. So I live in Florida, and it was a beautiful day outside. The sun was shining, the weather was nice.
Yeah.
Uh, but I found myself locked in my apartment, in my bedroom, underneath the covers with the blinds closed.
Mm.
And I was in between crying and being like extremely upset
Yeah.
because I didn't know what was going on and I didn't know how to fix it. And it just so happened that my best friend decides to call me when I'm in this situation. And so she calls me. I decide to pick up the phone this particular day. And I remember she said something that changed my life. She says, I'm not getting off the phone
Yeah.
until you tell me what's really going on. And I remember when she said that, I knew that she wasn't just asking out of courtesy. She wasn't just checking in on me because that's what friends are for. Like she was really genuine about supporting me. And because I felt that, I decided for the first time to open up. So I opened up with her and I told her everything. I told her how I wasn't sleeping at night because of the negative racing thoughts. I told her how I didn't have an appetite, so I wasn't eating. I
Yeah.
told her how I didn't have any motivation to go to classes, to go to work, and I just didn't want to do anything. And that's when, I felt safe for the first time in my life because she listened to me. And then she says, it sounds like you're depressed. And I was like, depressed? Because
Why would I?
remember,
Yeah.
yeah, why would I be depressed? And remember, growing up, we didn't talk about things like that. So I didn't even know what depression was.
Yeah.
Like for me, can I be honest with you, Rupali?
Absolutely.
So, so, so for me, when I thought about depression, I thought it was a white person's issue.
Privileged white person.
Yeah, I thought depression only affected a select group of people who couldn't handle adversity. And
Yeah.
so I thought it was for weak people. So when she said the word depression, I actually took it as an insult. I was like, how could you be calling me depressed?
I think that
Um,
that is such a great point, Abraham. The label, right? To
yeah,
call depressed, right? Like how in our mind we say that we are not that person.
that's somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I battled with stigma. I battled with those negative perceptions. I like to call them lies, right? I battled with all of these lies. And it finally got to a point where I was sick and tired of the same thing over and over again. And my best friend who called me that day recommended that I see a counselor.
Yeah.
And I ended up seeing a counselor weeks later. And that started me on my journey to getting treated for depression and recovering. So
And then you started this speaks to inspire. I see it right behind you. Tell me a little bit about that and what you're trying to achieve with that.
Speaks to Inspire is the mental health solution for young adults suffering in silence. And so we work primarily in colleges and universities, and we help institutions to develop programming that supports the mental health and well-being of their students, and that also reduces stigma